I was chosen by my professor to take part in a confidential research project that was expected to last 2 years. Before I left, my fiancé, Jason Miller, held my hand and asked me to get our marriage certificate first. He said he would wait for me, wait until I came back, and then we'd hold the most beautiful and grand wedding ever. I smiled and kissed him. The next day, we became legally married. The research progressed surprisingly well. In less than a year and a half, I had completed all of my work. To give him a surprise, I didn't tell him my exact flight details. But when I dragged my suitcase to our familiar door and rang the bell, the person who opened it was a stranger. She was wearing a loose maternity dress, her face bare, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other on the doorframe. She looked me up and down impatiently, frowned, and said, "Sorry, we don't hire postpartum nannies. You must have the wrong place." Then bang, the door slammed shut right in front of me. I stood there, the wheels of my suitcase stuck in the thick doormat, frozen. I thought maybe I'd gone to the wrong floor, but when I looked up, the number 2101 was correct. "If you don't leave, I'm calling security," came the woman's muffled warning from inside. Just as I was about to press the doorbell again, the elevator doors opened. Jason stepped out carrying a thermos of soup. When he saw me, his face froze. The container slipped from his hand, hit the floor with a loud clang, and fish soup spilled everywhere. "Emily, why are you back?" From behind him, the door creaked open again. The pregnant woman poked her head out, her voice soft and sugary. "Jason, you're back. The baby just kicked me again." I stared at Jason, waiting for an explanation. He took a deep breath and forced a stiff smile. "Emily, let me introduce you. This is Sarah Collins, my distant cousin. Something happened in her family and she had nowhere else to go, so I let her stay here for a while." I didn't say a word. I just looked at him. Sarah walked out completely and naturally wrapped her arm around Jason's. "Cousin, this must be your wife, right? She's so pretty." Her tone was sweet and polite, but she didn't make the slightest effort to let go of his arm. Jason's body visibly tensed. He tried to pull his arm free, but failed. "Emily, you just got off the plane, you must be exhausted. Let's go inside and talk." I looked at the two of them. The air was thick with the sour smell of spilled fish soup and something else, something strange and uneasy. The entryway I had carefully decorated before leaving was completely different. The monstera plant I loved was gone, replaced by a huge baby stroller. "Stay here for a while?" I finally spoke, my voice dry. "Long enough to replace everything in the house?" Sarah blinked innocently, speaking before Jason could. "Don't blame him, sis. I just thought that plant was in the way. The stroller couldn't fit through easily, so I asked him to move it to the balcony." She gently rubbed her belly. "The doctor said I should walk around more. It's better to have more open space at home." She said it so naturally, as if she were the lady of this house. I ignored her, dragged my suitcase past them, and walked straight into the living room. The moment I stepped inside, a heavy mix of milk and an unfamiliar perfume filled the air. The entire layout of the living room had changed. The gray fabric sofa I had specially ordered was gone, replaced by a bulky brown leather set. The photo of Jason and me under the northern lights in Iceland had vanished from the wall, replaced by a huge cross-stitch embroidery of 3 chubby babies. But what struck me most was the corner I had turned into my little workspace. It used to hold my professional books and a high-end computer. Now it had become a mountain of baby supplies, bottles, diapers, and piles of baby clothes in every color. Jason followed behind me, his voice awkward as he tried to explain. "Sarah has a lot of things, and the apartment isn't that big, so she's just using your space for now. Don't worry, your books and computer are all safely packed away in the study." Sarah immediately chimed in, her tone sugary sweet. "Yes, sis, I'm only borrowing the space for a bit. Once the baby's born, I'll move out. I won't get in the way of you and Jason." She smiled meekly, though her hand never left her belly. I walked straight toward the study. Jason's face changed. He tried to stop me, but I had already pushed the door open. There were no books, no computer, only a baby crib. The bedding was pink, and a framed ultrasound photo sat proudly on the nightstand. My temples started to throb. Jason and I had designed this study together. The wallpaper, the shelves, even the floorboards were ones I had personally chosen. I had spent countless nights here writing my thesis, and he had stayed up beside me, reading and researching. This room used to be the truest reflection of our shared life. And now, it had turned into a baby's nursery I didn't recognize. Jason, I turned to him, my voice trembling slightly. Where are my things? He couldn't meet my eyes. His gaze drifted elsewhere. In the storage room. It's kind of messy right now. I'll take them out for you tomorrow. Seeing this, Sarah hurried over, a worried look on her face. Don't blame him, sis. You just got back and the house looks different. It's normal to feel upset. Then she turned to me, her tone soft and apologetic. Sis, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have touched your things without asking first. Please don't be mad at Jason. If someone needs to be punished, let it be me. Her eyes glistened as if she were about to cry, her voice delicate and pitiful. Watching the two of them play their roles so perfectly, my chest felt crushed under the weight of it all. I couldn't breathe. I didn't stay in the study. I turned and headed straight for the master bedroom. Jason and Sarah immediately followed, their faces both tight with unease. When I opened the door, I froze completely. The silk bedding I had loved so much had been replaced by a gaudy red set. The aromatherapy lamp I used to keep on the nightstand was gone, replaced by a porcelain statue of the goddess of mercy holding a child. The closet was half open. Inside hung Jason's clothes and rows of unfamiliar maternity dresses. The clothes I had left before going abroad were nowhere to be found. Where are my clothes? I asked quietly. Sarah spoke first, careful and polite. Your clothes? Jason sent them all to the dry cleaners for care and storage. He said he wanted you to come back to clean, fresh clothes. Jason nodded quickly. Right. They're all at the cleaners. I'll go pick them up for you tomorrow. He sounded sincere, but I noticed something in his eyes. Jason's right index finger kept twitching along the seam of his pants, his telltale sign whenever he lied. But what caught my attention even more was the nightstand. On it sat 2 glasses of water, and beside one of them were a few scattered folic acid pills. I walked over, picked up the small bottle, and read the label carefully. The dosage instructions were printed clearly on the side. Turning to Jason, I asked slowly, Since when did you need to take folic acid? The color drained from his face in an instant. Sarah's smile froze too. They exchanged a quick glance, one full of panic, and the chill from it seeped straight into my heart. Emily, let me explain. Jason's voice came out dry and shaky. They're Sarah's. She sometimes gets up at night and comes to our room to get some water. Oh, I said, stressing the words. Your room? No, not our room, he stammered, realizing his slip. I mean, just sometimes, Emily, please don't misunderstand, Sarah suddenly interrupted, stepping closer as tears welled up in her eyes. It's my fault. I have nightmares at night and get scared being alone. So I begged Jason to let me sleep on the floor in the master bedroom. She pointed to a pillow and a blanket neatly folded at the foot of the bed. I swear, nothing inappropriate has ever happened between us. Jason and I are innocent. She burst into tears, sobbing pitifully as if she were the victim of some enormous injustice. Watching her performance, I almost laughed. A pregnant woman, sleeping on the floor? Who would ever believe that? Emily, Jason said gently, trying to defend her. She's had it rough. She's timid by nature. Please don't hold it against her. I ignored both of them. My gaze drifted to the nightstand drawer. I remembered that drawer. It was where I had kept all of my research notes and drafts, the work of 10 years of my life. I walked over and pulled it open. It was empty. Completely empty. Not even a scrap of paper remained. For a moment I felt my blood turn cold. Where are my notes? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. Jason's face darkened even more. They're probably stored in the storage room too, he mumbled. Really? I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Which storage room? Take me there. Show me. His eyes flickered nervously, avoiding mine. Then, suddenly, Sarah let out a faint cry and clutched her belly. Jason, my stomach. It hurts. Her face turned pale, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. Jason panicked immediately, completely forgetting about me. He rushed forward to hold her. Sarah. What's wrong? Are you in labor? Come on, I'll take you to the hospital. He scooped her up in his arms and bolted for the door, his movements so practiced it looked like he had done it 100 times. As they passed me, he didn't even glance my way. He just muttered hurriedly, Emily, stay home and rest. I'll be right back. I stood there watching their frantic figures disappear down the hall, feeling like a complete outsider, a fool in her own home. The door slammed shut behind them, and silence fell over the apartment. I stood alone in the empty living room. The air still carried that woman's perfume. I walked over to the heavy brown leather sofa and sat down slowly. The seat was still warm from someone else's body. Then I took out my phone and dialed Jason's mother's number. The phone rang for a long time before someone finally picked up. "Hello, Emily, what a surprise. How come you have time to call Mom today?" Jason's mother sounded delighted. "Mom," I said calmly, "I'm back." There was a pause, just a few seconds of silence, and then a burst of excitement came through the line. "Really? Oh, you silly girl. Why didn't you tell us in advance? Where's Jason? Why didn't he mention it?" "He took Sarah to the hospital," I replied evenly. "She said her stomach hurt." The tone on the other end immediately changed, filled with alarm. "What? Stomach pain? Oh dear, that's not good. Isn't her due date still 2 weeks away?" The moment those words slipped out, she seemed to realize her mistake. Silence fell again, this time longer and heavier. "Mom," I said softly, "you already knew, didn't you?" Her breathing grew rough through the receiver. After what felt like forever, she let out a long sigh. "Emily, sweetheart, please, don't overthink this. Jason, he just made a mistake. That girl's very manipulative, you know?" She clung to him and wouldn't let go. I said nothing, just listened quietly to her excuses. "Men, well, they all make mistakes at some point," she continued, her voice full of pleading reason. "But Jason truly regrets it. Can't you forgive him, just this once? Besides Sarah's baby, he's the first grandson of the Miller family." The first grandson. So they had all known, they had accepted it. Everyone except me, the fool left in the dark. "Emily," she went on, her voice soft but full of calculation, "you're a smart, understanding girl, a scientist with an open mind. Once the baby's born, we'll register him under your name. He'll be your son from then on. The Millers will never treat you unfairly." She kept talking, trying to comfort me, but every word made my stomach twist with nausea. "Mom," I cut her off coldly, "do you know where my research notes are?" There was a moment of confusion. "Your notes? I don't know. Weren't all those things, your bottles and jars and whatever, packed up by Jason? He said he'd kept everything safe for you." I ended the call, and in that instant, the heavy weight in my chest crashed down, shattering everything inside me. I stood up and began searching through the house that felt both familiar and foreign. I looked everywhere, the closets, under the bed, the storage room, every possible place. No clothes, no books, no trace of my research notes, the very work that mattered more to me than my own life. At last, in a dusty pile on the balcony, I found a discarded cardboard box. Inside were my trophies and certificates, the awards I had earned before leaving for my research abroad. Lying on top was the broken glass frame that once held my certificate for the National Young Scientist Award, the highest honor I had ever received. The glass was shattered, the surface covered in dust and grime. Beside it lay the jade bracelets my mother had left me, the only thing of hers I had kept. One of them was snapped clean in two. I crouched down, staring at the pieces before me, the remnants of everything that had once symbolized my pride, my dreams, my life, now tossed aside like garbage. I didn't cry. My eyes just burned with a dry, aching pain. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jason. "Emily, Sarah's fine. It was just some false contractions. The doctor says she needs to stay in the hospital for observation. Get some rest. I'll stay with her tonight." I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it, word by word, letter by letter. After that, I dialed another number. "Hello, Mr. Zhang? This is Emily Lin. I need you to help me look into something." The next morning, I received a call from the private investigator. "Miss Lin," he said, "we found the results of what you asked us to investigate. About a year ago, Jason Miller registered a company called Horizon Biotech. The legal representative listed is Michael Collins, Sarah's older brother. The company's main business is in biopharmaceutical development. About 6 months ago, they launched a product called Genesis 1, an anti-aging serum. It's been a huge success on the market, bringing in massive profits." The detective paused for a moment before continuing. "We also discovered that Jason sold one of the apartments under your name, as well as several investment funds you had entrusted him to manage. He invested all of the money into this company. In addition, the precision instruments you stored in your West Side laboratory were also sold off by him. I listened quietly, my heart turning to ice. Genesis 1. That was my project, the research I had spent 5 years developing. The one for which I had just completed the preliminary theoretical framework. I had gone abroad specifically to advance that very project. The core of the experiment, every piece of data, every research note, every draft, was kept in that house. He hadn't just stolen my money, he had stolen my research. My work, my future. Miss Lynn, the detective added hesitantly, there's one more thing. Sarah Collins isn't Jason's distant cousin. She was his classmate in college. They were together back then. About 3 months after you left the country, they moved in together. I hung up the phone and stared out the window. The sunlight outside was blindingly bright, almost mocking. I let out a soft laugh at myself, at my own stupidity. I once believed that what we had was unbreakable love. But from the very beginning, I had just been the leading role in a carefully planned lie. Jason never loved me, Emily Lynn, the person. What he wanted was Emily Lynn, the scientist, the value behind my name, the research he could exploit. Then my phone rang again. It was Jason. I answered. Emily, are you awake? His voice sounded tired but still gentle. Did you sleep well last night? I bought your favorite crab soup dumplings. They'll be home soon. If this had been yesterday, I might have felt touched by his thoughtfulness. But now, the sound of his voice made my stomach turn. Jason, I said evenly, my research notes, they're with your company, Horizon Biotech, aren't they? There was dead silence on the other end. It lasted so long that I almost thought he'd hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight and trembling. Emily, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Don't understand. I gave a short, cold laugh. Would you like me to send you the original design files of Genesis 1 to jog your memory? I heard his breathing quicken. Emily, listen to me, he said quickly. It's not what you think. I just wanted to help turn your research into a product, to surprise you. I didn't want you to work so hard, spending every day buried in the lab. What a noble excuse. What a sacrifice. He took everything that belonged to me and called it love, called it a gift. A surprise? I asked quietly. Was the surprise the one you made in my bed with another woman? Emily. His voice jumped several octaves, defensive and sharp. How can you say that? Sarah and I are innocent. The baby, it was an accident. Don't jump to conclusions. After everything we've been through, don't you trust me? Trust you? I said, my voice steady, my words cutting like glass. Jason Miller, I only trust evidence, and I found plenty of it, starting with what I discovered in the master bedroom's trash can. I've already sent the samples for a DNA test through Attorney Jang, I said coldly. I expect the results will be ready soon. There was nothing but silence on the other end. I could almost picture Jason's face, pale, terrified, completely unhinged. I didn't give him another chance to speak. I hung up. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Jason, his parents, and Michael Collins, Sarah's older brother, standing outside. Each of them wore the same expression, a mix of panic and fury. I opened the door. Before they could say anything, I stepped aside. If you have something to say, I said evenly, come in and say it. My calm seemed to catch them off guard. Jason's mother was the first to rush in. She grabbed my arm tightly. Emily, you can't do this. Family scandals shouldn't be made public. Jason just made a mistake. Are you trying to destroy him by involving lawyers? Jason's father's face was dark and cold. Emily Lynn, our family hasn't treated you badly, have we? And this is how you repay us. Michael Collins stepped forward, his tone full of accusation. Miss Lynn, I don't know what misunderstanding exists between Jason and my sister, but you can't slander her like this. DNA testing? That's an invasion of privacy. I looked at their twisted faces and felt nothing but disgust. I yanked my arm free from Jason's mother and walked to the center of the living room. Not treated me badly? I said, my voice steady but sharp. Do you mean breaking my late mother's keepsakes? Or stealing my research and selling it for profit so you could all benefit? Then I turned my gaze on Michael. Slander? If you're so confident, then why don't you have your sister take the paternity test right now? Michael's face turned white. He opened his mouth, but couldn't form a single word. Finally, Jason spoke. His eyes were red, his voice hoarse. Emily, please, I'm begging you. Let's handle this privately, okay? The company's still new. It can't survive a public scandal. If you withdraw the test, I'll give you whatever you want. Whatever I want. I looked him straight in the eyes. I want you and every single one of them behind you to lose everything. I want your reputations destroyed. The room went completely silent. Jason's mother was the first to react. She dropped to the floor and began wailing dramatically. Oh, what sin have I committed to end up with such a vicious daughter-in-law? Jason, it's all my fault. I never should have let you marry her. Jason's father pointed a trembling finger at me, his face purple with rage. You wicked woman, you're cruel. Michael shouted, his voice rising with anger. Emily Lynn, don't push your luck. If you make this public, no one will come out of it unscathed. Jason looked at me with a pained expression, as though I were the one who had betrayed him. Emily, I can't believe what you've become. You weren't like this before. You used to be kind, gentle. Has living abroad turned your heart to stone? I stared at their little performance and almost laughed. I've changed? I met Jason's eyes and said coldly, No, Jason, I haven't changed. I've just stopped being blind. I was blind before. That's why I mistook a thief like you for someone worth loving. Then I turned to his mother. And you can stop crying. Your son's not confused. He's criminal. What he's done isn't a mistake. It's corporate theft and fraud on a massive scale. Enough to put him in prison for 10 years. Her sobs stopped instantly. Jason's father's face went chalk white. A bead of sweat rolled down Michael's temple. You're lying, Michael stammered. Genesis 1 was developed independently by our company. Independent research? I repeated with a faint, cold smile. I took out my phone and projected a document onto the living room's TV wall. This is the complete patent documentation for the cellular activation technology I applied for and received approval on before I went abroad, I said clearly. Patent holder, Emily Lynn, and your so-called Genesis 1, its core technology is this. Every experimental dataset, every theoretical model, it all matches my patent content exactly. I looked directly at Jason. Can you honestly say you didn't steal this from my study? Jason's eyes widened as he stared at the screen. The familiar charts and data flickered across the wall, and his whole body swayed as if his strength had drained away. The last trace of denial in his expression vanished completely. Emily, he murmured weakly, voice trembling, please don't do this. It's too late, I said flatly, my tone devoid of warmth. The moment you claimed my research as your own, it was already too late. I turned off the projection and pocketed my phone. Attorney Zhang has already filed the lawsuit. All of you can wait for the court summons. I grabbed my coat, ready to leave that suffocating house. But Jason lunged forward suddenly, wrapping his arms tightly around me from behind. Emily, don't go. I was wrong. I was so wrong. He sobbed like a child, his whole body shaking. I'll give you the company, all the money, everything. Just please, don't let me go to prison. I can't go to prison. I pried his hands off me, one finger at a time. Let you go? I asked coldly. And who's going to let me go? Who's going to give back the shattered trophies, the broken jade bracelet my mother left me? Who's going to return the 10 years of my life you stole? I pulled open the door and walked out without looking back. Behind me came their cries, pleading, furious, desperate, but I didn't stop. I didn't go home. Instead, I went straight to my laboratory. This was the only place that still truly belonged to me. My mentor, Professor Wang, was already waiting there. When he saw me, he sighed softly, a mix of pity and pride in his eyes. Child, is everything taken care of? I nodded. Professor Wang, I'm sorry for causing you trouble. He waved a hand dismissively. Nonsense. You're my best student. Your problem is my problem. He patted my shoulder firmly. I've already contacted one of the top intellectual property law teams in the country. They'll handle everything from here. What you need to do now is forget all that mess and focus on your research. He gave me a small smile. I've gone over your latest experimental data for Genesis 1. It's exceptional, nearly flawless. I've recommended it to the National Academy of Sciences Special Research Committee. They're very interested in your work. Warmth spread through my chest. In my darkest moment, someone still believed in me, completely and without condition. Thank you, Professor, I whispered. There's nothing to thank me for, he said, smiling kindly. You've earned it. Then his expression turned thoughtful. Oh, by the way, there's a multinational company, Riverton Pharmaceuticals. Their Asia-Pacific president wants to meet you. They're very interested in your technology and are willing to pay a substantial amount for a patent license. Riverton Pharmaceuticals, the biggest competitor of Horizon Biotech. Something clicked in my mind. A new plan began to take shape. Professor, I said quietly, I'd like to meet him. The next day, under Professor Wong's introduction, I met the Asia-Pacific president of Riverton Pharmaceuticals, a man named Jonathan Shen. He was younger than I expected, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, with a calm, refined air about him. We didn't waste time on small talk. He went straight to the point. Miss Lin, your patented technology is something we must acquire, Jonathan Shen said directly, without pretense. You can name your price. I shook my head calmly. Mr. Shen, I'm not selling the patent. He blinked in surprise, then smiled faintly. Oh, then what are you suggesting, Miss Lin? I can grant Riverton Pharmaceuticals exclusive rights to use the cellular activation technology, I said slowly, meeting his eyes. And I'll charge only $1 for the licensing fee. A flicker of astonishment crossed his face. He leaned forward slightly. Miss Lin, I'm intrigued, but I don't understand. I have one condition, I replied. Please go ahead. I want Horizon Biotech to disappear from the business world and from this earth completely. My voice was soft, but every word carried a quiet, unshakable force. Jonathan studied me for a long moment. There was a trace of curiosity in his gaze, alongside a glint of admiration. Finally, he extended his hand toward me. Miss Lin, he said, it's a pleasure doing business with you. I have a feeling we'll become good friends. Our agreement with Riverton Pharmaceuticals was finalized swiftly and smoothly. For $1 symbolic, I granted them full, exclusive production and sales rights for the cellular activation technology. In return, Riverton's legal department filed an immediate lawsuit against Horizon Biotech and Michael Collins, charging them with malicious infringement of trade secrets and patent rights. At the same time, the DNA test results for Jason and Sarah came in. No surprise, the child was his. I handed the test results, along with documented evidence of Jason's infidelity and the transfer and sale of my personal assets, to my divorce attorney. The Miller family fell into utter chaos. Horizon Biotech stock plummeted overnight, hitting the market's lower limit. Every business partner withdrew or canceled their contracts. Banks demanded immediate repayment of outstanding loans. Michael Collins was detained on charges of commercial fraud. Jason, facing multiple accusations, was placed under a travel restriction and summoned daily for police questioning. Jason's mother called me repeatedly, sobbing and begging me to show mercy. Later, she even came to my laboratory, blocking the entrance to stop me from leaving. Emily Lin, you heartless woman, she screamed, her makeup streaked with tears, hair disheveled, voice raw with hysteria. Do you really have to destroy our whole family to feel satisfied? What did Jason even do wrong? He only made the same mistake every man in this world makes. Must you be so cruel? I looked at her and felt nothing but pity. He went wrong, I said quietly, the moment he decided to make me his target. I walked past her without another glance and left. A few days later, Jason asked to meet. The place was the same cafe where we'd had our first date. He had lost a lot of weight. His cheeks were sunken, his hair streaked with gray. He looked 10 years older than the man I once knew. He didn't look at me, just stirred the coffee in front of him, staring into the cup. Emily, he said finally, his voice low and hoarse, can't we really go back to the way things were? I didn't answer. I know I was wrong, he continued, his words breaking. I was an idiot, a monster. But Sarah, she's innocent. The baby's innocent too. She took all of our savings and disappeared. I don't even know where she is. My parents had to sell their house back home just to cover part of the bank's debt. I have nothing left now. His voice trembled, and tears began to fall. Emily, he said softly, please, help me one more time. For the sake of what we once had, talk to Riverton. Ask them to drop the lawsuit, as long as the company can survive. I'll work for you like a beast of burden for the rest of my life, he begged. I looked at him and felt nothing. Jason, do you know how important the jade bracelets my mother left me are to me? He froze. They were passed down from my grandmother to my mother, and then to me. I told you they were my only keepsake, and what did you do? You let your woman smash them and toss them on the balcony like trash. From the moment that happened, all that was left between us was hate. I stood up and looked down at him. Your ruin is your own doing. As for the rest of your life, spend it repenting in prison. The court's verdict came quickly. Michael Collins, as the legal representative of Horizon Biotech, was convicted of commercial fraud and misappropriation of trade secrets and sentenced to 15 years in prison with a fine of $50 million. Jason, as the primary offender, received consecutive sentences totaling 20 years. All his assets were frozen to compensate Riverton and me. The Miller family was completely ruined. Even selling their house couldn't cover the massive fines. Overnight, respectable retired officials became debt-ridden paupers. My marriage to Jason was declared null by the court because his union had involved fraud. Everything was settled. That day, I went to the prison to see Jason, our last meeting. Separated by thick glass, he wore a prison uniform and a shaved head, gaunt and worn. When he saw me, he lost control, grabbing the phone and shouting, "Emily Lynn, why are you so cruel? Why not give me a way out? Put me in prison. Are you satisfied? Are you happy?" I looked at him calmly. "No, I'm not satisfied. You only go to prison, but what I lost is a life I can never get back." He was speechless, a laugh stuck in his throat. "I came today to tell you something." I paused, then said each word clearly. "Riverton has used my technology to develop a second-generation product. Its effect is 10 times that of Genesis 1, and the cost is only 1/10. Their new product launches today. Soon, the whole world will know about cellular activation technology, but its creator will be Riverton. You and Horizon Biotech will be remembered only as a ridiculous footnote in history." Color drained from his face, he understood. I wasn't only going to ruin his reputation. I was going to crush the business he once boasted about, obliterating everything he stole from me with interest, and condemn him to live forever in regret and humiliation. He pointed at me, trembling, unable to form a single word. I hung up, stood, gave him one last look that felt like looking at a stranger, and turned without remorse. I walked out of the prison into bright sunlight. Jonathan Shen's car was parked not far away. He was leaning casually against his car when I walked out. When he saw me, Jonathan Shen gave a small, easy smile. "It's all over?" I nodded. "Come on," he said, opening the passenger door for me with a gentleman's grace. "There's somewhere I want to take you." The car sped smoothly through the city, the afternoon sun glinting off the glass towers we passed. Eventually, it stopped in front of a brand new research building. Above the entrance hung a gleaming sign, Roxy Biotech Laboratory. I froze, staring at it in disbelief. "This is a gift from Riverton," Jonathan said, smiling. "Think of it as the foundation for our long-term collaboration. All the equipment inside is state-of-the-art. You can assemble your own team and pursue any research you wish." I gazed at the building, my building, feeling a rush of emotions I couldn't quite name. I had lost so much, but I had gained even more. I had freed myself from the past and stepped into a new beginning. "Thank you, Mr. Shen," I said softly. He chuckled. "Call me Jonathan." His eyes were warm, sincere. "Roxy, you deserve the best." For the first time in a long while I smiled, truly smiled from the heart. Then my phone vibrated. A message popped up from an unknown number. "Emily Lynn, I've come back with the baby. Can we meet? Sarah Collins." I looked at the message for a moment, then calmly deleted it. Some people, some stories, once left behind, no longer deserve a place in your life. Lifting my gaze, I looked again at the research building gleaming under the sunlight. I knew, deep down, that this was the beginning of a brand new chapter in my life. The end.